Hey guys, we are back with some more Salt Lake City Lakers franchise mode. It's been a while since I've said that. In the last one, Ilya Kistov did not perform up to expectations. 874 save percentage in 19 games played, while Lukas Dostal has the same amount of games played and a much higher save percentage. So we're going to roll with him for a little bit. I want to see if one of these guys can get going on a hot streak. We'll give them both 2 losses, and then we'll see which one of these guys can get on a hot streak first, because it hasn't been a great season so far. I wouldn't say it's been bad, because we're still in a playoff spot, I believe, but we need to stay consistent in order to stay in that playoff spot, because it's a pretty competitive division at the moment. And now getting to the 5-on-5 lines, I switched Quentin Messier to a center because JT Miller has actually been pretty bad on the faceoffs. I did not think he would be as bad as he is at a 44.34, because you take a look at his faceoff history, the past 4 years at least, he's had over a 50%, but this year so far at a 44%. So we're trying out Messier here in the middle for the time being. And on defense, I don't think anything changed, but the real change is on the power play. That first line power play was very dry. The second line power play is actually fine. So the second line power play is untouched from when we last saw it. But the first line power play now is looking like Burakovsky, Wright, Merkley on the wing, and then Marner and Dundas. So Marner's being double shifted on the power play. I took off, Rack Mechanics. He has not been producing at all in the power play this year. 1 power play point in 37 games played. That is absolutely terrible. So we took him off the power play, and in hopes of getting that first line power play going, double shifting Marner on the point. So a quick look at the standings. Yes, indeed, we are in a playoff spot, but just barely. We are currently sitting in 5th in the Central Division, and the Pacific, the wild card in the Pacific is right there. They're only a few points back. The Golden Knights and the Canucks, and even the Sharks, and the Ducks and the Coyotes. So all of them are technically still in it. So we have to really make sure that we get some wins on the board here, because even the Stars, the Wild, they're right behind us as well. Only 4 points behind us in the case of the Wild, and 3 points behind are the Stars. So we really need to get some wins together here in January and really for the rest of the season. So let's go 2 games at a time. Let's see what Dostal can do. So Hayden Fleury has returned from injury, so we're going to get Broberg out, and we'll get Fleury back in. And I think we'll put that -1 for chemistry is a little ugly, but I think actually it was Merkley down here, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Merkley, then Lambos with Dundas, or Dumbo with Dundas, and then Lambos with Fleury. Or I could go Goddard and Lambos. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. And then Merkley with Fleury. So far, so good for Lukas Dostal. 2 wins in 2 games played against the Arizona Coyotes, 1-goal game. And against the St. Louis Blues, and yet another 1-goal game for Lukas Dostal. So I'll leave him in there as long as he is getting the wins. So he just had a loss against Columbus and an overtime loss against Boston, but he did go on a 4-game winning streak there, so I'll give him 1 more game against Winnipeg since he did get that point against Boston. We'll see what happens here. Nice win against Winnipeg. We'll go 1 more game against Detroit. That'll be a 3-0 shutout victory. He's hot. Lukas Dostal is pretty hot right now. Although, unfortunately, against Florida, he had a 6-1 loss. And we have a trade alert to Florida, Shea Theodore, and to Vegas, a first, Kabanov, and a third. So with that loss against Florida, we're going to get Mr. Ilya Kistov back in there. But that was a solid, almost month of games for Lukas Dostal, and he definitely impressed for the most part. So actually, Kistov got back in there, it looks like. So I don't know how many of those games Dostal played and how many Kistov played. It looks like, I forgot to turn off automated goalie rotations is what that looks like. So that's unfortunate. So you know what? We'll do that right now. We'll turn off automated goalie rotations. Yes, indeed, they were on. And because I don't know how many of those games Dostal actually played compared to Mr. Kistov, I think we're going to go with him here because Kistov actually has more games played than Dostal. And I think Keystov before had 19, so he played 6 of those games. So we're gonna see what Dostal can actually do this time. I thought that was all Dostal, but apparently not. So now we know for a fact that Dostal is our starter. So we will go into these 2 games with Nashville and Chicago and see what he can do. To Nashville, you have Rhodes and Dahl, and then to the Islanders, Nuge and Myers. We got a loss there against Nashville, but a solid 3-1 win against Chicago. We'll give him one more game against Pittsburgh and see what he can do there. That'll be a 5-2 win. All right, I'll leave him in there as long as he's getting the wins. We have another trade to Dallas, Radish and a 4th, and to Washington, Anderson and a 3rd. And unfortunately, he did collect 2 losses there against Toronto and San Jose, but nonetheless, a pretty good streak for him. A 4-game, or I believe actually 5-game winning streak for Lucas Dostal from Chicago up until Washington. So, pretty solid stretch for him. We will get Ilya Keystov back in, and we are officially in second. So, not a comfortable second as of yet, but we're currently in a divisional spot at the very least. All right, now Keystov is in net, and we have another trade alert to the Islanders, Hepo Niembi, and a 4th, and to San Jose, a 2nd, and Koivisto. Another trade to Carolina, Dylan Dubé, and to Dallas, 2 firsts and Witt. So Keystov got a win against Anaheim and a loss against Calgary. We'll leave him in for Ottawa and see what he can do there. I'm hoping to take him up to the trade deadline here. I really want to get on a few solid runs here with Keystov, considering he should be the future of this franchise, but he's yet to prove himself, unfortunately, as we have another trade alert to Florida, Cliff Poo, I believe his name is, and then 2/3 and Highmore, and to the Rangers, Hernandez, a 2nd, a 4th, and a 5th. Solid win there against Ottawa, 5-1. We have Edmonton now. That's an unfortunate 5-0 loss. I want to give him another chance because I feel like he just needs to find some consistency. Because when I notice whenever we put Keystov in, he just goes win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. He can never find his rhythm. So I want to give him at least 2 more games. We'll give him up to the trade deadline just to see if he's capable of getting into a rhythm of any kind. So another trade alert to San Jose, a 1st and Moores, and to Tampa, you have Tony DeAngelo. Another trade to Dallas, Kuznetsov, and to Washington, Radish, a 4th and a 5th. So Radish gets traded for, I believe that is the 2nd time this month. So he got a point there against the Rangers and 2 points against the Sabres. So, as I said, we'll just leave him into the trade deadline and see what he can do. Another trade to Nashville, William Karlsson and Michael McLeod, and to Pittsburgh, a 1st, Glenn Cross, and Pettersson. And he gets the wins against Vegas and the New York Islanders. So, pretty solid record at the moment, 36-22-4. It looks like we're on track for the playoffs. So I would say if we could win 13 games, I would say we're a lock for the playoffs at this point, given our recent performances. However, this team is still a little shaky, but I think that's specifically because of our goaltending. You know, we've had Dostal play 33 games, we've had Keystov play 33 games. Keystov's been getting slightly better as of recent, but still a little shaky. So we're really going to have to rely on our offense to get things going here, especially in the playoffs. And we're really going to have to rely on Mitch Marner. I was thinking we're going to need to trade him at the draft this upcoming season because we're going to be in a huge cap crunch. But after this season and seeing I don't want to say mediocre, it's been underwhelming for sure, of the majority of our offensive players, I don't feel like we can get rid of Marner, you know? There's no reason for us to trade him during this trade deadline. We're going for the playoffs. His contract is 4 years long, so we may as well hold on to him. But the draft is going to be rough. The draft is definitely going to be rough because I have a feeling we're going to need to get rid of him. We're just going to check on a few key stats here before the trade deadline just to see how everyone's doing. So Quentin Messier doing much better at faceoffs than JT Miller was, so that was a good change. Now let's see the first line power play. So Burakovsky currently has 7 power play points. Wright currently with 8. Merkley has 6. I think Merkley was one of the ones who only had 1 last time. It's doing better. It's doing better. Definitely not optimal, but we're doing much better on the first line power play. Marner with 15 points. That is expected as he is on 2 power play lines. And for Dundas, only 3. And for right now, since Keystov's doing pretty well for himself, we're going to leave him in net. It's just goaltending, to be honest. And I really want to give Keystov that chance to prove himself. Now, yes, he is 23. He's getting to that point where he should be developing by now, as far as his numbers go. But I want to give him one more shot at the playoffs before we really make any concrete decision on Ilya Keystov. So we are going to go the rest of the season here. Well, actually, not all at once. We're going to go, I would say, 5 games at a time, just to give Keystov a little bit of confidence here. But first, we have another trade, and once again, involving Taylor Radish to Chicago, along with a 4th, and to Washington, a 2nd, and Garcia. Another trade to New Jersey, 2 firsts, and to the Rangers, Hintz and Gooley. So 5 games have passed. That was a pretty solid run there for Ilya Keystov. 4-0-1 in the past 5 games against LA, Colorado, Carolina. He got a shootout loss against Montreal, and then an overtime win against New Jersey. So that one wasn't a pretty win right there because, 4 goals against, but still, a win is a win. We are getting the points that we need to ensure our playoff spots. So let's go 3 more games. We'll go Tampa, Arizona, and St. Louis. Okay, so unfortunately we got all losses there. We did get 2 overtime losses, so got a couple of points in the bag there, but I think we're going to give Keystov a little rest, and we'll get Dostal back in. He did have a pretty long stretch there without taking a break, so we will get Dostal back in. So we'll go 3 games here for Dostal: Philly, Vancouver, and Columbus. So we had an overtime loss, a regulation loss, and a victory. So I'll give him 1 more game against Boston, see what he does here. That'll be a 3-0 win. All right. He gets Winnipeg as well. 4-1 win. Okay. Overtime loss against Detroit. I'll give him 1 more game. He's been on a pretty good run here. A 4-3 win. Okay. I mean, so it seems to me like with this team, we just need to go back and forth between our goaltenders, just ride the hot hand. I hate to have a strategy like that, especially going into the playoffs, but it seems like that's what we need to do in order to get the wins, because neither Dostal or Keystov are really super consistent, So Keystov's getting in there once again to end off the season. We are at 78 games played, so 4 more games, and we, I believe, have already clinched the playoffs. So let's just get to the end of the season, and we'll check out all the stats, and then we'll end things off. So we have ended the season 46, 25, and 11. That is good enough for, I believe, 2nd, I saw. Yes, indeed, 2nd in the Central Division and 103 points. So it looks like we'll be facing off against the Avalanche in the first round. Marner with 86 points. Again, I was debating trading him at the draft, but after this season, I don't know. My mind may have just been changed. Shane Wright with 75 points. Burakovsky with 69. Plekanec with 56. LaRose with 52. Nieuwendyk with 52. Watt with 52. So we got a lot of depth scoring. Just not too many players who stood out other than Marner and Wright. And I guess even Burakovsky, he turned it on during the end of the season, I suppose. He wasn't that same goal scorer threat that he was last year, but he did get the assist this year, so I can't really complain too much from him. Dumbo with 49 points, Messier with 48, Dundas with 37. So Dundas looks to be a consistent 40-point guy. That 60-point season might have just been a one-off, unfortunately, but he's still a pretty solid offensive defenseman nonetheless. JT Miller with 34 points, Frederick with 31 points on the 4th line. De La Rose with 29, so that 4th line was pretty good when it comes to goal scoring. Ryan Merkley with 27 points, Naslund with 24, 15 goals there on the 4th line. Lambos with 21, Goddard with 19, Fleury with 16, Broberg with 2 in 10 games. And in goal, you have Dostal with a .905 save percentage and Keystov with an .886 in 45 games played. 2 shutouts for both of them. Now, I don't know who we're really going to use going to the playoffs. I would like to use Keystov to start out because, once again, I would like to give him that confidence and see what he's capable of in a season that isn't his rookie season going into the playoffs, because his first go at the playoffs wasn't pretty. .867 save percentage in 4 games. We got swept. I would just like to see more out of him. And I really want to know what the future of Kistov is looking like here. And I think these playoffs will be a heavy determining factor in whether we keep or trade Kistov. Because once again, he's getting to that age where he should be starting to come into his own as far as save percentage goes, and that's obviously not really there at the moment. And the team stats now, we had a 3.41 goals for per game. Not bad at all. We were in the top 3 of the division, and we were 0.07 away from the first place Nashville Predators. Goals against per game, we were in the bottom half of the division, but we're not that far off from the rest of the division. So really, when you look at it that way, it's not bad, but it could definitely be better. And Dallas, I mean, at the top of the division there with a 2.91, so it's not like really any team in our division was great at keeping the puck out of the net, but there's definitely room for improvement. Now, the power play. This is where it was strange, because the second power play unit was pretty good, and the first power play unit, at least for the first half of the season, was almost non-existent, and I don't really know what to make of it. So that, as of recently, that could be a 25%, because I believe the first line power play got going towards the end. And as for a penalty kill, we are actually towards the bottom of the division with an 80.4. At least we're not Minnesota there with that 73.8. So it's still a good penalty kill. It's just not with the rest of the division, you know. So that's unfortunate there. And now we will see if we do indeed have the Avalanche in the first round of the playoffs. And yes, we do. So we'll check out the lines of the Avalanche, and then we'll end things off. First line is Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen, of course. They're all still there. That's going to be rough. Second line, Jost, Sokolov, and Burke. Third line, Lievo, Donato, and Kapanen. Fourth line, Breland, Boquist, and Sherwood. On defense, you have Girard and Makar, Byram and Dumoulin, and then Gustafsson and Vatanen. And in goal, you have Bednar and Leonard. And scratched are Peros, Kyrou, and Scavello. And Kyrou is actually injured, so he might end up getting back in there at some point if he's close to returning. In the East, we have Ottawa versus Toronto, Boston versus Tampa, Philly versus the Rangers, and Columbus versus Buffalo. And in the West, you have Calgary versus Vegas, Edmonton versus Winnipeg, Nashville versus Dallas, and your Salt Lake City Lakers versus the Colorado Avalanche. And with that being said, I will end this one off here, and I'll see you guys in the next one when we face the Colorado Avalanche in the first round of the Year 9 playoffs. See you guys then.